God bless you, everyone, and welcome to a very special Divine Discoveries. And this is celebrating Black History Month. Now, we know it goes beyond a month, but we're so thankful that we can shed a little bit of holy light in this amazing and beautiful time of celebration and commemoration. I honor God and my wonderful leaders. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to do this because this subject is one that is near and dear to my heart, as well as I know our amazing leaders and to our whole Divine Discoveries family. So God bless you and welcome. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for allowing me to do this. We have an amazing guest on tonight that I know you might think you might know her, but I'm telling you, after today, she puts a new ring on you don't know nothing about me because she has a wealth of information that she hasn't just read about, but she's lived. God has blessed her to live through so much. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you see this beautiful lady, you are not going to believe her age, and you're not going to believe that she was a major part in the civil rights movement. But I'm telling you, we got the birth certificate to prove it. She is really an example that God will keep you if you want to be kept, and he preserves the righteous. She is absolutely beautiful. So without further ado, I want the whole Divine Discoveries family, all of our audience, to welcome the one, the only, our dear and near Minister Fannie Sams. God bless you, Minister Sams. How are you
God
tonight?
bless you, Minister Rachel. I am so blessed of the Lord. Oh my God. He never ceases to amaze me. I love him. I,
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
Minister, I first want to just, if you like to, I know you said you wanted to thank leadership for a moment for allowing you on the show, and I want to give you a moment to do that before we
Yes.
jump right into the
Yes,
story.
yes, yes. I do thank God for leadership. Pastor and elect lady. I love them. Bishop. I call him pastor all the time because he's pastor to me.
Yes,
So I
yes.
just thank you, Bishop and elect lady, for allowing me to be on Divine Discoveries. And God bless you both.
Oh, God bless you, Minister Sams. Well, if you would allow me, I'd like to read just a small portion of a little bit of her background, her bio, and we're going to lead into why we have her on this great, great show, in which we're entitling that, honestly, it's called I Lived It, a testimony beyond the textbooks, because it really is a testimony. Not every story is in your textbooks, young people. There are more unsung heroes than what you know, and they're godly ones at that. So this is a moment for us to shine a light on another chapter you probably have not read but need to. So a little bit of Minister Sam's bio. Minister Sams was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and she was born in 1939. I told you, you're not going to believe it for how she looks. So that means our beloved Minister Sams is now 86 years young and is a long-standing member of Emmanuel's Temple Church. Yes, yes, yes. And when I say long-standing, she's one of the founding members. God blessed her to come to Emmanuel's Temple in 1988. Now, you know, it was the first Sunday in June. She joined 4 weeks after that, which brings us about June 26, 1988. And she has been faithful and a part of our ministry ever since. And we love Minister Sams. So, Minister Sams, again, she is a living witness to some of the most defining moments in American and Black history. With extraordinary clarity and recall, she remembers events as early as the age of 2 years old. Her life unfolding like a sacred book whose chapters reveal both unspeakable pain, undeniable proof that God's sustaining power is yet at work. We welcome Minister Fannie Sams. God bless you again and welcome.
God bless
All right,
you.
ministers. God bless you. And I did want to also note that Minister Sams is not just um, blessed by what she can recall in her story vocally, what you're going to hear tonight, but if you go to Washington, D.C., and go into the Library of Congress. Do you know Minister Sam's story is in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.? Yes, she wrote a piece, an amazing essay about her life and living through civil rights and segregation, and all of this amazing things that have happened. And Congress enrolled her, if I'm saying this right, Minister Sams, as one of the voices of civil rights. Just quickly, can you tell us about
That's
that? Just
good.
really quick. Is that
Pardon
true?
me.
Can you tell us
Oh, sure. Well, I was on the computer and I saw this ad on there that asked people that were eyewitnesses in the civil rights movement. And so I said, I would like to tell my story. And so I wrote the essay and I sent it in, and lo and behold, they sent back when a few weeks after sent me a little certificate in the mail thanking me for being one of the voices
about?
that,
Yeah.
participated. So I have it on
And
my
she
wall I have it on my wall in the hallway.
And she sent me that, and it is living proof. And they actually showed her the shelf. So if you go to Washington, where actually you can find her story, what shelf it's on in the library,
Yeah.
the Congressional Library. And it's just amazing that her story is now being spread. Now it's been spread in literary terms within books, but it is now being spread here via the internet. So now we have another piece of history. We're so excited. Minister Sam, I'm so excited to jump right in this. When I was talking to her about her story, let's go a little back. We had an amazing experience at Lansing with our reunion in October of last year. And Minister Sams was one of those hardworking ladies
Oh,
that
yes.
had been, yes, was cleaning the church. It's a very large edifice in Michigan, 64,000 square feet. And these ladies are keeping it running and going. And so she was cleaning it, and I was helping her as we were preparing for our reunion service. And she and I started talking. We were cleaning the pews at the church, and we ended up sitting down and
Uh-huh.
started talking about her life. And I told her right then and there, I said, Minister Sams, I've known you since a little girl, since I was 7 years old. But I've never known this part of you. I have to bring you on Divine Discoveries, and we have to share your story. It moved me to tears. It moved me to laughter. It inspired me to be a better woman of God that is
Oh,
of
bless
color
you,
and
bless you,
represent. And I
bless you.
just, Minister Sam, thank you. Thank you for doing
Oh,
that for all of
bless you,
us.
bless you, bless you.
So I'm
Oh,
excited. So that's the
thank you
genesis of
as
how we
well.
started.
Thank you as well. Thank you
Yes,
as well. Oh,
yes, ma'am. Well, okay, Minister Sams, again, we've entitled this, I've Lived It, a Testimony Beyond the Textbooks, coming from our own Minister Sams. So, Minister Sams, you told us that your memory, which is probably one of the best recalls I have ever met of someone that can recall their life story all the way back at the age of 2 years old. And you
amen.
told me growing up, yes, in Birmingham, Alabama, in your earliest memory. Minister Sams, can you tell us that earliest memory? Give us a little more insight. We call this the Pearl Harbor, a child's first memory and trauma.
Yeah.
And this is the lead. Before segregation had a name in her life, the world itself was already at war. Her very first memory wasn't a toy or a game. It was fear, prayer, and a radio. And that leads us to Pearl Harbor. Tell us and take us back, Minister Sampson, to that early ministry, the day the radio announced the news, and what happened in your home in Birmingham, Alabama, as a 2 year old.
Okay, it was on a Sunday morning. And my
Mm.
grandmother wakes us up on Sunday morning for prayer before we go to church. The family gathers together around this big pot belly wood and coal wood and coal stove. And it was
Wow.
burning hot, and it was so hot till it was red. It turns red, when it's hot. And we were sitting around the stove. And so she says we got to get on our knees and pray for church. So she turned the radio on just before we got ready to pray, because we was getting our little things together to get ready and pray. She turned the
Mm-hmm.
radio on, and they said Pearl Harbor has been bombed. And my
Wow.
grandmother started screaming. And she called my aunt and my mother in the room and said they just bombed Pearl Harbor. And that was on a Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. And
Wow.
my grandmother says, let's get on our knees and pray, because we were already getting ready to pray for church before we go to church. And we all got on our knees, and we were down there so long. My grandmother seemed like she was down there about 2, 3 hours, she and
Wow.
her daughters. But that's how I remember. And the radio was a big radio. The big kind, tall and big, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a jukebox, we used to call them. It was that
Mm-hmm.
big. And
Yes,
it was on all day long. All you could hear is Pearl Harbor, Pearl Harbor. They just kept telling the same story over and over and over. And I was 2 years and 5 months old.
and Minister Sams, that's so amazing. You said you remember it because of the screams, the crying out, and you were scared as a little girl.
Yeah,
But you said
everybody,
this also hit home, because you said, what
right.
was it about your uncle? What you said
Yeah,
your uncle?
my uncle, they called him the very next day, just
Wow.
that quick, and told him that he was drafted into the army. And he had
Wow.
just had a new baby, which was my cousin. And I remember
Oh,
when he was born. And so he had to go away and go to the army. My cousin was born 6 months before that happened. He was born in the summer, and this was in the winter. And so he had to
wow.
go away and leave his wife and his baby. And everybody was just screaming and crying and everything. And it was just so scary. And that's why I remember it. I
Wow.
remember traumatic things
Yeah.
and then real
And
happy
you even,
things.
I
Mhm.
remember you even said a part of that. One of the things that also brought a little bit of fear were blackout nights. You called it
Oh,
blackout nights,
yes.
where soldiers, can you tell us a little bit about that? What
Yes.
was a blackout night? What is
Because of the wall, Birmingham, Alabama was the biggest steel, iron, and oil producers. And so usually when it's a war, they try to get rid of everything that you can use to for the war. And so they
yeah.
had to uh, uh, Birmingham, Alabama, all we had there was steel, ore, and iron. And so
Mm,
they knew that they would try to target us first. And so what
wow.
happened is they to keep them from being able to see where to target, everybody had to turn their lights off at night. But it was more of a practice drill. And they
Mm,
would come through every night, knock on the doors, and say blackout. And it used to be
wow.
around 8 o'clock at night. And they would say blackout. And then everybody would have to turn their lights out, and the whole city would be black dark. And it was scary because these were soldiers and they had on all their gear. They had guns
Mm,
and boots and uniforms and the hats and all. And it was just scary because I was a little bitty girl. And when they
yeah.
said blackout, well, I was going to be afraid because all the house was going to be dark. So that's
Wow.
why I remember that.
My goodness. Now you said there was in the midst of all of that, you've had a happy time. Real brief, can you tell me what gave you all a sense of joy or peace in such a frightening time? I mean, you're 2 years old and you're growing up with all this going on. What did you guys do for a little bit of solace or peace? What did you guys do? What was a happy moment?
Well, The happy moment was when all the family, the cousins and the aunts and uncles would come together on Sunday evenings for dinner. And we
Oh,
had desserts and we had we had good food and everything. And it was so much fun for us to come together as a family and have good times, you know. So we were excited about that. And we just
so
had great time. We just had great
oh,
times
I'm sorry.
together, and those were the happy times. Yeah,
So do you feel like that's something that the Black community, that you guys learned to do and establish? If you didn't have a lot, you had
mhm,
each other. Did
that's
you
right.
feel like coming together made you feel more safe and secure
Yeah,
as a
you
young
feel
girl?
most safe and secure when everybody was all around. And it took your mind off of thinking all those fearful things, you know, about
Yes, ma'am.
how, yeah, how we were just so afraid we were going to get blown up. We
Yeah.
were going to get
Wow.
bombed. And so, you know, that's why I can remember that because it was a
Yeah.
scary time, you know.
I can
But
imagine.
we did have happy times, especially when my cousins and all us would come together and have
Yes,
fun. And we would eat dinner at my grandmother's house. That all her children came to her house for dinner.
yes, ma'am. Well, I want to go a little bit further into growing up Black in Birmingham. So,
Mhm,
our lead in for this, of course, is being born in 1939. You grew up in a city where fear was enforced and
mhm,
power was weaponized,
mhm,
and childhood ended pretty early.
mhm.
So, I wanted to ask you, as a Black girl growing up in Birmingham in the late 30s and 40s, what did everyday life look like? And when did you realize the rules were different for you as a Black girl? When did you realize, I hate to say it, that you were Black? When did you realize that in the South? Was it just in,
I thought-
I want to say innate? When did you?
I think I
Yes, ma'am.
realized that early because the parents taught the children at a very young age where you couldn't go and where you could go. They even taught us that you can't go in those bathrooms. You see, it says
Mhm.
white only and they said you can't go in there. It's white only. And they said, here's our bathrooms, colored people only. So we grew up knowing they taught us because they didn't want us to get hurt or in trouble for breaking the rules. So they taught us
Mhm.
at an early age how to, you know, walk before the law and how not to get in
Mhm.
trouble with the law because they taught us what we could do and what we couldn't do. So it was like natural to life for us because we were born
Wow.
into it and it was like natural to life for us. We wasn't angry about it. That's just all we knew. That's how life was. And we thought that's just how it's supposed to be. We didn't know any better,
Wow.
you know. We just and then we
Mhm.
had everything of our own because we couldn't go in their establishments. We had
Mhm.
everything Black owned, uh,
Wow.
dry cleaners, supermarkets,
Mhm.
Black movie theaters, we
Wow.
owned everything they owned because they allowed us, they wanted us to have our own so we wouldn't come
They
where
wanted
they
you
were.
separate.
Yeah, so that's
Absolutely.
one thing I can say. They did allow us to have our own. And we had a lot of rich Black people during that time, well off Black people, because they owned
Mhm.
everything that the white man owned because we couldn't go in their establishments. So we were happy because we had the same kind of places to go that they did, you know, and we didn't
Wow.
know it was anything wrong with it. We was too young to know that.
Wow.
But when I got
And
older and found out that I
mhm.
was different and we, you know, we couldn't have certain things that they have, I just knew that we had our own and we could get a lot of what we needed, but not everything, but
Right.
most, you know,
A
hold
lot of
on.
it. Yes, ma'am. That
Yeah,
also shows you the power of conditioning. You know, how you can
yeah,
be conditioned to
right.
believe, just feel
Yeah,
like, well, this is just the way of life and this is
right,
what we do. have ours, they have, and it's amazing how you said that was one of the first things they taught you. So,
Mhm.
maybe some kids are learning bat and cat and,
Mhm.
words like that.
Right.
You're learning colored and white. You had to
Right.
learn those as your first words to keep you safe and protected, which is just, it's such, I mean, looking back, looking at it now from our perspective, it just seems so sad. But I'm hearing from you at a point when you
Mhm.
don't know any better. It's just how
Right.
life was.
That's just
It
how
really
life
was how life.
was.
But
Hmm.
well, Minister Sams, let me ask you this. Looking back now, what did growing up in that environment, do you think it ever took anything from you? Or do you think it gave you something quietly, whether it's an inner strength or excellence? Because I know you said you guys had things, blacks had things, and did it make you proud or did it take anything away from you? What do you think growing up in that time? Did it give or take?
You know, to me, it gave because we learned how to
Mm,
suffer and we learned how to call on
mm,
God and we learned how to trust
yeah,
God and we learned how to pray.
yeah.
My grandmother was saved. She didn't know about the Holy Ghost, but she knew about the John's baptism. But she did teach us the
Okay.
word. She taught us the word of God. She taught us we couldn't sit down to eat unless we had learned a Bible verse by heart. Every
My
every
God.
week we had to get a new Bible verse. We had to say it the whole week, and then the next week we had to
Mm,
have a new one. And this was all growing up, all our lives. We had to have a new Bible verse every week because my grandmother was a religious person. I'm not saying
yeah,
she was baptized in the Holy Ghost. She didn't know about that. She didn't know as
right.
much as know about the Holy Ghost. We were
Mhm.
Methodists. We were
Okay.
Methodists. So, but my grandmother was a praying woman. She believed in God and she trusted God. And I think that's what got us through. I think that's why we didn't fall apart because we were taught that God was with us and God is going to bring us out and God is going to protect you and God is not going to let anything happen to you. So I was so aware of God and that He would keep us. And so I think. Now, what else was it that you asked me? Because I want to stay on
No,
track.
that honestly, that answered it great. It really gave you a sense
Mm.
of, like you said, strength and
Strength.
and how to endure struggle and how to lean
Right.
on God. You can
Right.
lean on, now we're so pampered and we have apps for this.
Right.
We have different things, technology, and we can
Mhm.
voice our opinions here. We have this platform. When your platform was on your knees and praying to
Right.
through and being thankful, which I feel like it has stripped this generation. So you answered that perfectly. So I just want to talk about some more early experiences that you were telling me growing up during these times. There was a little tear in the streets. You remember growing up with, I don't want to call him iconic because he was nothing to make an icon out of, but he was definitely a major figure in a dim light, especially for African Americans. But you knew about, they call him Bull O'Connor. Um,
Mhm.
and he was a man that, was very, a white supremacist, but
Yes.
he also was the county commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do the lead in for this. It says that in Birmingham wasn't just segregated, it got terrorized. Power
Mm-hmm.
rolled through the streets in tanks, enforced by dogs, strong powered hoses, and silence. And so one of those people was Bull O'Connor. That's what they call him, Bull O'Connor. And you said you remember he used to drive down the city in tanks,
Yes.
just kind of spreading that terror. And I think you even also said a lot of the police department at that time, they were also part of the KKK.
Yes.
So, can you tell us what did that make you feel like? Seeing that, was that to bring a sense of terror and fear, or trying to get people in, usurping authority as a county commissioner or even your
Mhm.
police department was supposed to protect? But do you think it bred more fear? Talk about that time.
Yes. Everybody was fearful of the KKK. Everybody. We didn't want to run into them in no kind of way. We would see them mostly on TV. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I've ever seen them, but I think about once I saw some of them downtown in their uniforms. But we
Mm-hmm.
never rarely even saw them but on TV. They always had them on TV. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody was afraid of them. I was afraid of them. My siblings were
Mm-hmm.
afraid of them. We just didn't want to come in contact with them because
Yeah.
they were the police department. That's who they were. They
Wow.
were the police department, every last one
Wow.
of them. But I mean, they didn't make that known, but everybody
Of
knew
course.
who they were. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a fearful thing. Anytime their name was brought up, that just make you tremble. We was afraid of them because they killed so many people. They tarred and feathered people and hung them on trees and threw tar
Mm-hmm.
on them and put feathers on them and set them on fire and all of that. And we knew that if you did the least little thing, or you stepped out of the way, the least way, they would kill you. And they are really the same ones that did the bombing at the church.
Talk about that was what we were going to lead into next. The lead-in was terror struck the church, and innocence was buried beneath rubble. You actually remember the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And we know that's a lot of times when Martin Luther King would come to Birmingham, that's the church. And
That's
it
the
was your
church.
cousin's grandmother
Mhm.
that was a member, but she had a major part in that. Can you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that?
Yes, that church is sort of where the two girls that went to school with me, um, and it was my grandmother's church. And like you said, Martin Luther King did most of his meetings there. And I don't know if these people thought that he was going to be there that Sunday or why they bombed it on that particular Sunday. But my cousin's grandmother had a dream, and
Mm,
she that Saturday night before the bombing that Sunday. And so
mhm,
she went to her pastor and she told him that she had had a dream that something horrible happened to the children in the basement. And he
mm,
said, and she said, get the children out the basement today. Let them come upstairs. And upstairs where
mhm.
we are. And the pastor said, Miss Curry, he says, I can't go on dreams. People tell me I can't be going on dreams. He said,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
we can't put the church in a panic like that just because you had a dream. He said, dreams don't always mean nothing. And he told her, he said, no, we're
Wow.
not going to do that. We're not going. And she was crying and pleading with him and crying. And he said, no. She told us this story. And she told
Wow.
us, he said, no. And we're not going to do that. And when it really happened that they blew the children up in the basement and her dream came to pass. And
And that
so
was the next day. She told him,
the
wasn't it
very
that
next day,
weekend?
she dreamed that Saturday night. And that was the very next day that she told him.
Wow.
And I can kind of see his part too. I really
Hmm.
can. I know he
Yeah.
was a preacher,
Yeah.
but that's when you don't have the spirit of the Lord
That's
leading
right.
you, because they
Yeah.
didn't know nothing about the Holy Ghost either. That was a
No.
Baptist church. And back then they really was founded on once saved, always saved, and all of that. So they
Hmm.
didn't they
That's
didn't
fair.
know. They
They
didn't
didn't have
have the
he didn't have
spirit.
the
They didn't have the
discernment.
discernment.
No.
Uh-huh.
No,
Yeah.
no. And that's so sad because two of those girls went to your school.
Right.
You said you knew Addie Mae Collins and Denise McMayer were
Uh-huh.
unfortunately two of the girls that died in that basement. And you
Uh-huh.
went to school with them.
I did.
And to just, and it's just so sad to know. I know that had to
Yeah.
also, again, bring fear into your community,
Yes, it
into
did.
not just only the state of
Mhm.
Alabama, but
Right.
just in the hearts of Blacks during that time. Because when you can't even go to church
Yes.
and be safe, your
That's
streets,
that's fearful. That's
that's
fearful.
fearful.
That's
Yeah,
true.
your streets are being governed, by people that were also part of the KKK, was supposed to protect you. You have wars and rumors of wars and different things, and you're still trying to keep that together. So
Right.
you had so many interesting stories. You also talked to me about a story about another young boy that was in your community. And this is a segment we call, hunger, violence, and a child loss. The lead in was that some tragedies never made the news, but they marked a generation forever. There was a young boy, you said, about 13, and he was very hungry, and a thin little young boy, and he was very hungry. Food was scarce for some in that time, a lot in that time.
Mhm.
And can you tell us about that story of what hunger drove him to do, but what the outcome of that was, being hungry and Black?
Yes, he was a 13-year-old young man, very young. He wasn't like 20, 25. He was only 13 years old. And he was hungry. And he just passed by this restaurant. He saw the people in there eating, but he wanted to get a closer look at the food. So he went between these two buildings. There was another building next to the restaurant. And the little space, the buildings were so close together, it was so narrow up in there. He almost had to turn sideways to go up in there to look in the window and watch the people eat. And I'm sure looking
Because
at
he
the
was so
food,
hungry. He
he
just
was
wanted to
hungry.
look at
He just wanted to look
it.
at the people eat. He was hungry and he just wanted to see the food. And
Mm,
somebody in the restaurant turned and saw his face in the window and started
mhm,
screaming. And she saw it was a Black face. So they called the
mm.
police. The police came. He was up in the still up in
He
there looking, because I don't think he knew that nobody was even saw him,
saw
because he
him. Mhm.
probably couldn't hear her scream or anything. But she just
Right.
turned and looked and saw his face in the window. And the policeman came and they saw him up in there and they started shooting and they killed him. And then they had to
Oh
take
my.
something like a fork or a pick or something and drag his body out from between the two buildings because they couldn't get in there. It was too narrow. And they just killed him
My
just
goodness.
because he was hungry and looking at
And
the
look,
food. And yes. But
and that
menstruation.
the
Mhm.
the stories that I can't even imagine. It wasn't like he went in the establishment, and
No,
took the food, stole the
no.
food. And we could even understand that being hungry. It's the point
Mhm.
that he just looked. He wanted to look at them, and
That's
because
right.
they felt threatened, they shot
Mhm.
him. And
That's
he was
right.
so narrow in the building, it wasn't
Mhm.
like he could run or escape, but
Right,
they shot
right.
him, had to drag him out with a hook. I can
Mhm.
only imagine that again as a young girl. This is happening in your community, and you're hearing this again. More fear and is being placed in you.
Yes.
About that. You went and talked about another story. Tell us about even there was um, one in a world. This is the lead in. Even innocence wasn't even enough to save you. There was a young boy you said could not
Mhm.
read. He could not understand. And can you tell
Right.
us the story about this boy that you knew and you've seen around in your town?
Yes, and that was right across the streets from me at the farmer's market. This is
Mm.
now after me and Deacon Sams was married. Now, I wasn't a child then. I was a grown
Okay.
woman, but I was
Okay.
about in my early 20s. And this young man, he was at the farmer's market and he had to use the bathroom. And he went
Mm.
into the bathroom that said white only.
Oh God.
And someone saw him going in there and they ran and got security and told them that he had gone into the white only bathroom. And they went in there, and a whole lot of people, not only security, but other men, they all rushed in there and they grabbed him and they beat him to death. and he died.
Wow.
Well, he died, you know, to death is he died. Yes. And
Yes. And to
it was just such a sad thing. Now, that was right across the street from me. So I was older then. I had seen this kind of stuff over and over and over and over and over. And Minister Rachel, I didn't tell you, since we're talking about brutality and
yes.
all of that, I didn't tell you that my own brother was
Mm.
15 and a half years old, and the police shot him through the head with a 38 special, which is a police's
Oh,
a
God.
gun. They called them 38 specials then. That's what the policeman carried. And my
Oh, my.
brother, okay, the policeman in Birmingham, Alabama during that time was, and maybe even now, but even that time, they were crooked. They were people
Mhm.
that ran alcohol and drugs. Like if people made their own alcohol, but they took control of it, and they would have to give them a cut to allow them to keep on making it.
Wow.
And then they also had young boys selling drugs. And so
Oh,
my brother was one of the boys that he didn't sell drugs. This is what I'm trying to say. The policeman
mhm.
had them taking the drugs, delivering them to the people who they were selling them to. And they would pay these little
Wow.
boys money. You know, little boy, black people was,
Mhm.
it was all black boys. And they really,
Wow.
we were so poor. So when you give them money, at least little
Yes.
money would, help out and help support or even get them something to eat if they were hungry. So my brother, he gave his life to Jesus, and he
Mm.
went and told them that he couldn't do that no more. He
Oh,
said he
my.
would. Now, we don't know all this. Some older women in the church told us that he came, but three different women said he come by their house and told them he had gotten saved, and I'm doing some things that I know is not right with God, so I'm going to quit. And he went and told the policeman that he can't do that no more. And they said, "Oh, you
Wow.
think that you're gonna quit, and you much as you know, and you're gonna go to running your mouth?" And so
Oh,
they
my.
killed him. They
Oh,
killed my
my.
brother. I forgot to tell you that story. That was my own brother, 15 and a half
Oh,
years
my.
old. And they shot him through the head. And then when I tried to go up the streets, when somebody told me your brother just got killed, and I tried to go up the streets to see if it was my brother,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
said, no, that's not my brother. And the policeman told me, you can't see him. And I said, why can't he's my brother? How do you know he? I said, let me identify him. They said, oh, we know who he
Mhm.
is. And then I said, well, can
Wow.
I just see him? They said, no, you can't see him. And when my mother came home from work and wanted to go see, and she said, well, I got to say he's my son. It may not be him. They said, no, we
Mhm.
got strict orders that you cannot see him. And my mother never saw him until
Wow.
the day of the funeral. Yeah,
Minister
I
Sam,
forgot to
that
tell
is,
that.
oh, that is so sad
Yeah.
because they're
And
probably more afraid of him yeah,
yes, yes,
and
yes.
telling what the police were doing.
Right. That's
Oh,
what they were afraid of.
wow.
And they
I'm
made
sorry
another
for
young
that. I'm
man,
so
they made
sorry.
another young man say he did it. And they made him say he did it. And then they made him come to get out of town. And he moved up here to Detroit. And he was 16 at that time. And he didn't go back until he was about 40. Because I guess all those people was dead by then.
They made him say, they
The
made him say he
blame for
did. What did
killing
they
my
make
brother.
him try to confess?
They made him confess that he killed my brother. They kept him in jail for 2 weeks, and then they called his daddy
Oh,
was a
wow.
preacher. His daddy was a pastor. They called him and told him to get your son out of town now, or else he's gonna be next. So they sent him to Detroit. You know, all these are true stories. These are true stories.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So
Yes,
I didn't
ma'am.
tell you that part. So
And
I'm an eyewitness to
it's
so much. I'm an eyewitness to so much.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I, my heart breaks that you even had to witness and go through it. But when we say all things work together for the good of them that love God,
Yes.
I see where you have the strength that you have, Minister Sams, to
Oh,
endure it
yes.
and
That's
to
why.
get through it, to trust God, because you didn't let the pain break you. You didn't let it make you
No, I
bitter,
didn't.
but better.
I didn't.
And there was a purpose even behind your pain. So,
Yeah.
oh, that was just so touching. Well,
Yes.
Minister Sam, you're growing up now, you're seeing all this, and I was so touched to know, still though, as a little girl, you still had a dream that you wanted to be a doctor. I never knew this, a neurosurgeon or a heart surgeon,
Yeah.
because you didn't even let your environment suppress that dream, to kill that dream, and to believe that you can get out of this, and you were determined you were going to get out of this kind of lifestyle and do something well and bring that Black excellence up, and
Mm-hmm.
that you had seen from other people. And we're calling this segment Education, Calling, but a Deferred Dream. So our lead-in is, even in a system designed to limit them, Black educators planted excellence in you all, and the dreams still dared to rise. So you told me back then, with the schooling, you felt like there were a lot of African American teachers that really push education. I know my mother said the same thing growing up
Yes.
in Gary.
Yes.
They believed education was your ticket out.
Yes,
And
they did.
you said you had some of the best teaching, and it inspired you to want to become
Mm-hmm.
a doctor.
That's
Can you
true.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Uh, Minister Rachel, when I was very young in school, I was so timid and so afraid of getting my answers wrong when the teachers would call on me. So I always said, I don't know. And
Oh,
because I didn't want to answer, and the kids in the school fall out laughing when when you get the answer wrong and everything. So for a long time, I was so timid. When I got to the fifth grade, I had this school teacher that told me, she said, "You are just a little scared, timid little girl, a little fearful girl." She said, "I want you to stay with me after school every day for a while." And she says, "I'm
oh,
going to give you some homework and some questions, and I want you to, you know, do the work and
mhm.
then answer the questions when I ask you." And she did that for about 3 or 4 months. And she got me out of that being timid. I didn't make nothing but low grades in my early age. But when I
Mhm.
got older, I started acing everything because of this
Wow.
teacher. Her name was Miss Bean, Bean, Miss Bean.
Oh,
And she was a fifth grade teacher, and I was in the fifth grade by then. But all the way up to the fifth grade, I didn't make nothing but F's. That's called
wow.
failure. And P's, which called poor. And so I
Mm,
made P's and F's. And so when she got done with me, I would ace everything, even
wow.
all the way through high school. And then I got this, I want to be a doctor because
Yeah.
I knew that if I be a doctor, I could come out of poverty.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so it would be big time money. But that wasn't the only reason I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor because I love caring for people.
Mm,
And I've always cared for people. I still do it today. And
yeah.
so uh, I couldn't go to college because I was too poor, but I had like 7 people had money laid aside for me to go to college. And I just knew I was going to college. There was no doubt. I never even thought about it, never even worried about it because all these people kept telling me they're going to send me to college. And so when the
So the
time
Black
came,
community was, Minister
yeah, they
Sam, you're saying
they
literally
did
the
that. They
community
came
was
together
saving
and
money
right.
to want to send you to college.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
They did that.
Wow.
In my community where I lived in Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, Black people that were well off would come together, pool their money together, and send a child to college. They did it all the time.
Wow.
And that's what they were going to do for me. But my mother said, no, we don't accept charity. She said,
Oh.
if I can't do it, then you won't be going. She said, because they will never hold over my head the rest of my life that
Mm.
they sent you to college and hold me hostage and have me doing all kind of favors for them and wanting me to feel like I'm obligated to do this. But these wasn't that kind of people. But my mother
No.
was
And
just
I
like
think
that.
Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
almost like her fear and growing up and what she probably went through. She unfortunately put
Uh-huh.
it on you. And sometimes
Right.
parents do.
Right.
And she put her fears and it hampered you.
Right.
So you were not able to go to college
Right.
to do that because your mother would not accept what she called charity, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't see it was a community saying, we want to send Fannie out there to
Mm-hmm.
be something that maybe we couldn't be, or
Yeah.
to extend that excellence further, that God was
Right.
using as means to get you there,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't see it. Well, Minister, can I ask you a very personal
Okay.
question? Um, did that, did you hold anything in your heart with your mom? Did you have to get healed from that, knowing this
Oh,
was a
no, I never held anything in my heart against my mom. I love my mom to death. I don't care. My mother couldn't do nothing to me to make me not love her and not like,
right.
and hold things against her. No, I did. And you know what? God has always given me an understanding heart. I was
Mhm.
real sad for a long time. I was sad because my dream had fell apart. But I didn't hold it against my mother because I
Mhm.
understood that what she was saying and where she was coming from. My mother had
Mhm.
taught me so well. She sat down and she always taught us. She never whipped us. We never got whippings. I know that sounds
Oh,
strange for Black people, but my
yeah.
mother never whipped us. But my grandmama was the one with the switch. We lived with my grandmother. My mother had to come back home when my mother died. She had three little children, 1, 2, and 3 years old. I was
Wow.
one, my brother was two, and my sister was three. But she had to come back home to live with her mom because, and you hear me say grandmama all the time. I talk about grandmama because she was the authority in the house, the one with the
I see.
switch, the one with the switch.
Okay.
But but my mom, she just taught you. She'll say, "Come sit down," and she'll explain to you why she said this and why she's doing this and what can come out of it and what the consequences are and everything. She just made everything clear and plain to you, and you couldn't hate her. You couldn't be mad with her.
Wow. And I remember you said something that was so powerful. You said one thing you knew the Lord was showing you, that many of your other relatives did go on and they're educated and did very well,
Mhm.
but you said they didn't believe in God. They literally have become so wise that they really were fools. You said
Right.
you felt like God, what did you feel like God was saving you, even though you didn't become the neurosurgeon that you wanted, the heart doctor? What do
Mhm.
you think? You said now looking back, what did you think God's plan was in all of that?
Well, I tell you, for such a time as this,
My
he
God.
wanted me to be saved. He wouldn't have never gotten me. That's it, because he could have let me go that way and still
Yeah.
used me greatly and mightily. I could have been saved and full of the Holy Ghost, rich in everything, living for Jesus and loving Jesus. But the reason he didn't allow it, because he already knew that I was going to be like that too. Otherwise,
Wow.
if I had been going to be a person that's rich and love the Lord, he'd have let me be rich.
Well,
Okay.
Minister Sam, that that was just amazing, and I'm so thankful that you really got an understanding. You let the eyes of your
Yeah.
understanding become enlightened to
Yeah.
understand that God had a plan,
Had a
even
plan. Amen.
what your mother may have looked like she tried to hold you from or held you back.
Mhm.
God still worked it out for the good. So I'm so
That's
thankful.
right.
So
That's
okay, now you've grown up. You're still there in Alabama. We
right.
Here comes Martin Luther King. Here comes the different protests that are happening, of which you were a part of some of those, the sit-ins and all of these things, the
Mhm.
peaceful protests, trying to make a change, not just for the South, but for Blacks everywhere.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's just hold on to your seats, Divine Discoveries. If you think the story has gotten was interesting, we are about to bring up the intensity of the interesting behind the story. Um, Minister Sams talks about how she remembers again Martin Luther King coming through and different ones trying to invoke civil rights, the civil rights movement, that there would be equality. She knows what segregation was about and was like, now it's time for some integration. They're trying to bring people together. And so you had told us that you actually remember in July, and I am so sad I don't have my exact notes. I think it was 1962 or so.
Yes. I
I believe
believe
it was
it was 1963.
63. Yes, ma'am, in
63.
July.
Mm-hmm.
And they were asked prior to that, of course, the boycotting of riding on the buses and different things like that. And you were part of that boycott. You remember that,
Yes.
driving and pooling
Yes.
with people after
Mm-hmm.
what happened with the great Rosa Parks. And so
Yeah.
you guys rallied behind you and you did that. Well, you remember in July, they said, okay, they passed the law, the bill, and that there was now going to be no more segregation, supposedly integration. And you have an amazing story. So it was July. It was 1963. The announcement just came on, and you got yourself up and said, well, I'm going to go in a white restaurant and I'm going to have some dinner and I'm going to do this sit in peacefully, but I'm going to see if they serve us. Take us back to that time where the law had changed, but hearts had not changed. Talk to us about
Okay. You know, Martin Luther King had asked people to test it and see if the people would follow the
that.
new
Mm-hmm.
law. So he asked as many people as would to go into these establishments and restaurants and different places and see if they would wait on us, and especially particularly the restaurants is what they kind of targeted. So see
Okay.
if they would serve us. And so me and my friend we went. We at that time we were going to school downtown at the business college, and so we got out of school and we said, well, we're going to go to this restaurant because it wasn't very far from the school, and we are going to sit in here and do like Martin Luther King asked us to do. We're gonna be a part of this, and we're gonna sit down and
Okay.
just see what they will do. We walked in the restaurant, everybody started dropping plates, and eyes got big, and and they was
And these are the waiters. The waiters started dropping plates. The
yeah,
waiters and the waitresses, they were
right.
nervous.
And we
The white,
walked in just as big, and we sat on at the breakfast bar on the stool, and we just sit there before we could open our mouth to order something. We was going to try to order something. And the lady said, oh, no. She says, we're not going to serve you. You can sit there all day, but we're not going to serve you.
oh
And we say,
my.
well, the law has changed, and and
Mm-hmm.
and you have to obey the law, that you have to feed us now. And she was blankety blank blank. She was cursing and everything, and
Wow.
she just started shaking, and she was filling an order of coffee, and she was
Mm.
trying to pour the man's coffee in the cup, and her hands was shaking so hard this coffee was just splashing all over the counter. And then she
Oh
got the
my
milk
God.
and tried to pour the milk into the coffee, and it splashed and all over the counter. And she was shaking so hard and turning so red. And she was like,
My
no, we're not going to feed you, N-word. And so
wow.
uh, and so we say, well, we'll just sit here. And she says, well, there's no need of you sitting here. Get out, get out. But we didn't move. We stayed there
Good for
about I say a good 45 minutes or maybe an hour, because we were
wow.
waiting for the time for our bus to come back around. And
Wow.
so,
And before we get into the bus story, which
okay,
is amazing, and this is literally the day when you hear the law was passed, and
right.
Dr. King
That was
said,
literally
don't
the
try it.
first day. The first day.
First day. First day, and when you went in there, Minister Sams, let me ask you, when did you realize it was never about the food? It was about being treated as a human being. When you went in there,
That's it.
when did you realize that Oh, okay. This is beyond you just don't want us to have your food. You really don't want us to feel like we belong. Or what did that put inside of you? What did that make you feel like in that moment, seeing them shaking, where it used to be you on the other end, shaking and nervous when you went around them as a little
Mhm,
girl? You guys had
mhm,
to fear what you did. When the tables were
mhm.
turned, what did that make you feel like?
I felt so good. I felt so proud. And I was just so thankful to God that now we can go any place we want to go, and be served. But I didn't know they wasn't going to follow the law. I thought that they would serve us, and give. And it
Mhm.
wasn't all about, just like you said, it wasn't just about the food and all of that. It was just being able to everything to be equal. I mean, that
Yeah,
everybody, all men, all color, all creed can go to
that's
the
right.
same places and, you know,
Yes,
do the same
yes,
things. And so, but it didn't happen right off. It didn't.
yeah.
It took a
Now,
while.
Minister Sams, from there, there was a bus incident. So you were saying you were at the restaurant and they never served you, right? They never
They
served
never
you.
served us. They never
They
served
just
us.
spilled stuff and everybody was
Uh-huh.
nervous and you felt the tension. Was the tension in the whole restaurant? You
Right.
felt the
It
tension
was in
in
the
the whole
whole
restaurant.
restaurant. Nobody was relaxed.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
everybody in there was shaking, and if they wasn't shaking, they was looking mean at us. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
And so from there, I mean, I have so many questions I can ask on that, but for time, we're definitely gonna have to do a part two. I know Divine Discoveries, you definitely want to hear more, right? I know. But in the same day, you said, well, we were waiting for the bus. This was your opportunity to go on the bus
Mhm,
and to have any seat that you wanted
mhm,
because you paid the fare. It should have
mhm,
been fair
mhm.
because you paid the
The
fare, right?
fair.
Yes, right. You paid the fare. It should have been fair. You should have been able to sit.
Mhm,
The law was passed. And so after you left the restaurant, you go to the bus stop, you and your friend,
mhm.
and you
Yes.
were, remember, prior to coming from the business college, so you had your books in your hand. Walk us
Mhm,
through what happened next as you tried to leave that restaurant that would not still serve you, though they were
mhm,
supposed to, and getting
mhm.
on the bus. Lead us to what happened next.
Okay. I got on the bus and I walked down the aisles to the side seats. They had seats on the side like this, and then they had
Mhm.
the straightforward seats. You know what
Mhm. Yes,
most
ma'am.
buses look like. So this was
Yes,
the
ma'am.
long seat
Mhm.
against the window, and then across was another long seat over.
Yes, ma'am.
And as I had my books in my arm, and I tooted up, backed up, how in
Yes,
the position to back up to sit down.
yes,
Two hands went
yes.
in my back like this and said, "No N word. You're not going to sit
Oh,
by me. I don't care
wow.
what law they pass. You'll never sit by me. You're not going to sit by." And she showed me so hard. My books went all over the floor. I fell across
Wow.
I fell across the other bench on the other side, books and all. And so I turned in slow motion, and it felt like I was in a dream. I mean,
My
that's
God.
how it was moving. That's how
Yeah.
everything was moving. It seems like I was going to sleep. I
Mm.
turned to go and grab the lady, but I don't
Wow.
remember anything. All I remember is turning and looked like
Mm.
I was turning in slow motion. And I turned and I don't remember nothing else. It seems as if I went to sleep, like I went in a trance. And the next
Mm.
thing I knew, my girlfriend was snatching on my skirt saying, "Fannie, Fannie, Fannie." She said, They're coming back here to get you. The bus driver is on his way back here. He's on these guys on the back seat. They pop their pocket knives. They pop their
Oh
pocket
God.
knives. So these guys over here on the back seat, girl, you're gonna start something. Go sit down, sit down, sit down.
Oh my
And
God.
I like woke up out of a dream. And when I woke up, the policeman was on the outside of the bus. They had by that time they had called, I guess the bus driver radio for the police. And the
Oh
police
my
was
God.
talking to the bus driver. And the bus driver, he was headed back toward me, but when he saw the policeman coming up, he turned around and went back to talk to the policeman. And the boys
Wow.
put their knives back in their pockets. And
Oh my
uh,
God.
the lady ran and jumped off the bus. The police was going to try to talk to her, and she ran past the policeman. And when I looked at her, I couldn't believe what I had done to her. And my
Wow.
whole bang was gone on my forehead. I had a bang where the big roll bangs, where they used to wear
Yeah.
the roll bang, not the cut flat ones, but the
Right.
roll bang. And she had taken my whole bang out of my head because I guess why whatever I was doing to her, and I had her hair wrapped around my arm.
Oh my God.
So when I came to myself, her hair was around my arm, and I just slid my arm loose from apart from her hair. And she jumped up and ran off the bus. But that was not me because I was a timid little girl and I never fought. I was
Minister
afraid to fight. I never fought.
Minister Sams, you believe all that fear was so suppressed, and the suppression that they put on you was so put in you, and you just had to keep taking it and taking it. Remember how you said when you were younger, you just felt like, well, I guess this is just life. But the
Right.
more killing you seen, the more fear, the more young boys that got shot, your brother getting shot, maybe all of that. And then just coming from that situation in a restaurant where things are supposed to change. And it didn't, it just built up in you. And I think that might have been why you went
That
into that trance. And
that
it's just
might have been it. I just
everything
snapped.
came out. You
I
snapped
just snapped. Just the nerves of a
to
white
shut. Yeah.
person shoving me like she had the right to do that when I hadn't done anything to her. You know,
Wow.
I guess it just, you're right. So much you have held down and,
Yeah.
suppressed and kept going, and I guess
Yeah.
it all just boiled up, came out because I
Yes,
was
ma'am.
totally out of character. That wasn't me.
Did they do anything to you? Did you
They
get
didn't
off the
do
bus?
anything. Even the policemen went back to their cars and drove away. I don't know what conversation the bus had. He might have told them that he saw her in the mirror, showed me. He might have told them that she
Yeah.
showed her across. So all I know
Wow.
is that the policemen left and the bus driver continued on driving us home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Minister Sam, this is just amazing. Your story is just amazing in it. I think you just have embodied so much of what we've had to go through,
Yes,
from
yes.
trying to make normality out of something that was not, how we
Mhm.
had to lean on God to be our strength,
That's
our
who we
comfort.
had to depend on.
Yes, how we had dreams, and it wasn't because we weren't smart enough. It wasn't because, we didn't have the intelligence, but sometimes we just didn't have the opportunity to.
Opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And then
Yeah.
to get to this point where when things are supposed to change, and to see people, it's not when things and times are supposed to change. Sometimes the problem is when people won't change,
That's
right? When they
true.
won't let God do
That's
something
true.
in them.
Mhm.
And then we are now living as victims, right, of that. Well, I
Yeah.
guess you said victim no longer. You finally
No.
figured out, I got to get out of the South.
Yes.
And you married our beloved Deacon Willie Sams. That whole story is something funny. We're going to save that for a
Yeah.
relationship. How long have you and Deacon been married, by the way? How long have
Six.
you guys been married?
This past January, I mean, not this is still, no, this February. Okay. Past January was the 28th of January was 66 years of marriage.
66 years of marriage. Come on, give it up,
Yes.
everyone. 66 years. They are the longest or I should say the longest marriage
In the
here at
church.
Emmanuel's Temple. In the
Yes.
Emmanuel Temple
Yes.
Church, they are
And
the
Deacon was
longest.
only 17. He was only 17 when he married
17.
me. But
And
he was
that was
like a
your way.
real man. He was a real man at
Come
17.
on.
I mean, he was a real man. He had a job. He took care of his home and his wife. He had his own apartment and
Okay.
everything. I mean, after we got married, we was only married 3 months and he got his own apartment.
Well, see, and so any 17, 18, some of y'all 23, y'all need to slow and listen. He was a real man. He had something to provide for his family
Yes.
and a hardworking man. Like I said, that's a
Yes,
whole
he
show.
was. He
And
was.
we are definitely going to bring Minister Sams back. And maybe we'll have Deacon back too, because they have such an even more interesting
Yeah.
story, how they came to the north, how they came to Emmanuel's Temple. Oh my God, it is
Amen.
awesome. They will not be
Amen.
strangers. Definitely, Minister Sams, you will not be a stranger to divine discoveries. But I know
Yeah.
you escaped. You had to escape. You guys got married. You heard there was better jobs, better pay
Yes.
north, and you guys went north and you headed
Yeah.
up north. I think you said in 66,
In
1960.
66.
Yes, you headed up north, and you said, it was better. All racism, of course, was not erased. You still had your share, but it wasn't like the South, and it gave you another
No.
opportunity. Well,
Yes.
Minister, your story has been so fascinating. I just want to ask you two closeout questions.
Okay.
And again, we're going to definitely bring you back because this
Okay.
was just amazing. Minister Sams, what do you feel that, or what do you want younger generations of all races to understand about the price that was paid for today's freedom? What do you want the younger generations to know about the price that was paid? What story do you feel, or lesson do you feel God has for you to share to them?
Yes. Well, this one thing I can say, that suffering, going through, being denied, being rejected, being abused, all of these things make you call on Jesus even the harder. It makes you, even if you someone that don't know Jesus, people will call on him and they don't really know him.
Hallelujah.
And they
Yes.
start crying out to him when they don't really know him. They will ask him, and God is so precious. And he is so, I mean, Jesus, he loves us so much. He is just so compassionate. He will help you even if you don't serve him. If you call on him. If you call on him, he'll help you even if you don't really know him. Because you know that that is a name that you should call on when
Yes.
you're in trouble. And it makes you a better person. It teaches you how to go through hard times, how to suffer, how not to fall apart and go into depression. Don't do nothing
Yes.
foolish or crazy, but call on Jesus because he
Yes.
surely answers prayer. And the young
Yes.
people should learn this. Don't always want everything at the snap of a finger.
That's
Push
it.
up a button
Yes.
at your first call. I mean, learn how to go through, take something, suffer
Yes.
through something, because
Yes.
God's going to bring you out every time. He's going to
That's
take
it.
care of you. He's going
Yes.
to bring you out every time. He
Yes.
is. And we learn from these things. So if times like that come, if we have wars and all this that Jesus said, you'll know how to go through hard times.
That's right. That's right,
Amen.
Minister. That's beautiful. What a message. What a word. Because you're
Mhm.
right. It's the suffering. And I do feel like that's what
Yes.
our generation is missing
It's
from the church
missing.
world
Yes.
to in the secular world. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, people don't know how to suffer anymore, and they don't know how to suffer. As
No.
my dad said, suffer well.
Suffer
And
That's
in your
right.
patience, you really do possess your
You
soul.
possess your souls.
And
Yes, you
we
do.
see
Mhm.
you going through what you went through, and so many countless others, so many more unsung heroes, so many people that have done like you did, the sit-ins and the peaceful protests, and not just that, but the prayers that went behind it,
Yes,
living for God, serving and
yes,
fasting and
yes.
seeking God. It put a fortitude in you that we're not finding today. We're not finding
That's
in
true.
people
So
today.
true.
They
So
give up
true.
so easily, and that's why the
They
great
do.
falling away is going to be so. And I see why hell is enlarging herself,
Oh,
because
yes.
people don't have that same gumption in
They
the Lord
don't.
to
They
stick it
don't.
out, to stand when it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is just, what can I get out? How can I get out of quick? People jump churches, they leave churches just because it's
That's
hard.
true. That's
They don't
true.
like me. They don't understand what being hated really is until they've lived in your time,
Right.
right? But they can be more grounded. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and Mr. Rachel, I think our generation had it so hard until I think we spoiled our children because we didn't want them to suffer what we
Oh
suffer.
God.
And we
Oh God.
wanted them to have everything. And I think it's a partially our fault. We spoiled our children because of what we went through and what we can't.
Yeah.
We didn't teach them how to go through and how to suffer. When they wanted
Oh
something, we gave it to them. Everything they wanted, we jumped for. I just think we spoiled. We loved them, but we needed to
right.
have taught them how to learn how to wait on things and go through and
Yeah.
suffer and wait for things. But we did
That's right.
everything we knew how to do to give them what they wanted. And I think we
Yes.
kind of made them spoil. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well,
Yeah.
Minister Sams, thank you for this time. I
Yeah.
can't wait to talk with you again and have you back
Okay.
on. You did a fantastic job. Didn't you do a
Oh,
fantastic job,
thank you.
Divine Discoveries? I know
Thank
you
you.
can't hear, but everybody's
Thank
clapping right
you.
now. You did
Thank
an
you. And thank
amazing
you, Bishop and elect lady. I love you.
And we love you. And we are so glad to have such a pillar in this church here at Emmanuel's Temple. We love you so much, Minister Sams. God bless
We
you.
love you
Thanks
as
for your time.
well.
Give our love to Deacon, and
All
God bless
right.
you. And now we're heading back into Divine Discoveries for
All right.
more on our Black History special. God bless you. Love
God
you,
bless
Minister.
you.